I'm Rebekah Dopp, founder of Exponent, an organization that fights for global gender equality at the highest levels of power, influence, and decision-making, knowing that meaningful progress lies in ensuring equitable representation where corporate, industry, and policy decisions are made.
Now, more than ever, it is critical that we include all women's voices, and we will not stop until we have equality.
We are a country founded in profound inequality.
I could not get assignments that were political in any way, that just wasn't their view of what women did.
We were conditioned to believe that if anything is hard, that means we're failing.
If you don't have a framework that allows you to see how the starting positions are not equal, then efforts to do something equitable seems like preferential treatment.
We need to talk about it because otherwise, how are we ever going to discover the inequities if we're not having the discussion about it? Learn more at exponent.org. I'm Rebekah Dopp, founder of Exponent, a global equity accelerator that lifts up others who are doing the work. Exponent is honored to be the presenting partner at this year's ODI conference, and the only thing that could make this any better would be for us all to be together in person. Maybe next year. The next hour-ish will feature a conversation between Marissa Lambert and me about making tough choices and forging your own path in this industry. Then you will be invited into the home of living legend and feminist organizer Gloria Steinem for a talking circle. A special shout out to our new friends Julia, Frankie, Marissa, and Brittany. Enjoy the show.
I'm here today with Rebekah E. Dopp, the founder of Exponent, a global coalition that amplifies gender equity efforts at the highest levels of power, influence, and decision-making. Exponent is also this year's presenting partner for this conference, so you'll see some sparks throughout the day of the magic they produce. Exponent started as a 20% project inside of Google, and in 2020, it spun out of Google as a standalone 501c3. Exponent counts luminaries like Erica Alexander, Kimberly Crenshaw, Glennon Doyle, Abby Wambach, and Gloria Steinem as members, and companies including BBC, Bloomberg, and NASDAQ as partners. We're seeing little of their work next in the talking circle Exponent hosted with some lucky ODI students, including myself. Rebekah spent 20 years in media at HBO, CBS, YouTube, and now Google. She served as a senior leader on the launch teams of HBO Go, CBS All Access, and YouTube TV. She is also a corporate board director and advisor to companies at the intersection of media and technology. It's hard to not be inspired from Rebekah, and I'm excited to be in conversation with her here today. Welcome, Rebekah.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you so much. That was amazing. And I just want to say I am so excited to be here. And the only thing that could make it better is if we were all together. I'm really inspired by the work that ODI does. I'm really inspired by all the students. And I'm just thrilled to be in conversation with you. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We're so thrilled and honored to have you, and so excited to hear about all the work you've done over the course of an amazing career.
After attending an intimate sort of call to action with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada, and he said, listen, I've got a gender balanced cabinet. What are you people in industry doing? What are corporations doing to really fight the inequities that exist from a gender perspective? And I was so inspired by him talking and challenging us. And he was talking about his kids and saying, I make sure that I tell my daughter that she can be anything that she wants to be. And then I make sure that my son knows that too, right? I turn to my son and say, she could do anything she wants to do. I think that that's really powerful, and I was so inspired that I really went to the drawing board with a couple of my friends at Google, and off the side of our desk really created this model, which, eventually evolved into Exponent, And the idea is that we all come to the table with different passions, with a different portfolio of experiences and skill sets, with different sort of superpowers. And rather than just giving money or frankly attention or access to the organizations and to the people that are, the boots on the ground and the people that are doing the work, why don't we bring our superpowers to them? And so that could take many different forms, right? Some non-profit organizations that are doing really good work need an incredible data scientist to come in and really help them do that. Some people just need storytelling, right? Some organizations need a beautiful website to help them tell the story because their skill sets because the organization's skill sets and passions really reside in the program itself. And so the idea was just, let's all come to the table and use our superpowers to amplify the most powerful gender equity initiatives out there and really help them scale, right? And help exponentially increase their impact, which is what we aim to do. And over the course of a very short period of time, a couple of things happened that were so inspiring. The first was I was overwhelmed with people from across Google and from outside of Google that wanted to help and came forward and said, I don't know what I can do, but here's what I do really well, right? And that's everything from, a senior partner, M&A attorney coming forward and saying like, what exactly can I do? Because I want to participate and I want to be a part of this, right? And, or, Abby Wambach or Glennon Doyle or Gloria Steinem. But there are people all across now, not only Google, but we've rolled outside of Google, that are just coming forward saying, I've got something really special to give. And how can we make that happen? And so we created Exponent, and I'm so thrilled with how it's really brought people together. And as Gloria says, she doesn't pass the torch. She lights other people's torches, right? So she lights the way for everyone else, and we're all putting our torches together and making everything bigger as a result.
Mm-hmm. No, it's incredible. And as you said, it all happened in a very short span of time, just the success. It really did take off exponentially. But where did this interest start? Like, has this been, since your college years, you've always been really thinking about gender equity? Kind of where did this passion begin? Was there a specific event that sparked it, or it's just always kind of been a part of you?
It's a good question. I've always been, from the time that I was a small child, really passionate. And I will say, as I've gotten older, it's gotten much more productive, my passion, but about injustice, right? And from a very young age, and I think a lot of kids just naturally are this way. If small children see injustice, they get angry, right? Like, and they stomp their feet and they want to know why. And so I've always had that. I've always had that real fire and fight in me when it came to any sort of injustice, because let's not forget, all injustices are inextricably linked, right? And so it's not just gender, race and gender in particular, are inextricably linked. And so I've always had that. And then as I was sort of coming up and coming into my own in my career, I did a lot of not-for-profit work outside of my professional life. And I was on the board, and I was the chair of the Child Abuse Prevention Program, which brought, and still does, puppets into third grade classrooms. And the puppets teach the children how to recognize, report, and resist abuse. Mm-hmm. And I was so passionate about that and taken away, frankly, when I attended one of those sessions and I saw all the students afterwards that actually stayed behind to go and give disclosures and talk to the puppets about what they had been experiencing. And so that, I think my experience in the Child Abuse Prevention Program really led me to direct a lot of that passion and that fire towards protecting women and children. And protecting women and children, but also empowering, right? Because protection is one piece of it. Prevention is a huge piece of it. But then you also, like, we are all responsible to one another. And it's really important to then not only sort of protect, but empower and lift each other up. And so that, and then that brought me to the New York Foundling, which is a huge organization in New York City that has not only the child abuse prevention program, but it also has foster care and a crisis nursery and a school. And so I've always sort of, outside of my work, been very passionate about these things and drawn to them. And, I think the pivot point was when I attended that session with Prime Minister Trudeau, and I was in that moment just fiercely intent on marrying all of the passions and the work that I was doing outside of my work with everything that I was doing inside of the work, and really marrying the two together. Because for the first 20 years of my career, I kept my personal life and my professional life very separate in many ways. And that was, the way it was back then. And I think because of so many things, including devices that make everyone sort of always on and always available, our lives are fully integrated. And to be most authentic, I've realized over the years, it's important to have boundaries, but it's also important to really marry, to the extent that you can, who you are outside of work with who you are inside of work. And so that's really, that sparked for Exponent. And that's really, once you do that a little bit, it almost becomes addictive, right? Like, oh my goodness, like it's so powerful. It's so exciting, and I want to do more of this, and let's figure out a path. I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I know that it's going to work. Right. And so just moving forward.
I was just listening to a podcast with the chief editor of The New Yorker, and he was saying that what he really wants to do there is give his employees the opportunity to work on things that really matter to them, and, allow them to indulge in their passions on the job. And I think as long as companies are doing that, I think really, really remarkable things can come out of that. As, Exponent is a great example. And like you said, Gmail, I'm very thankful for that, as many other people are. So I think that's great that, that's a company initiative, but also that employees like yourself are taking it upon themselves to take these ideas and really make them big. And on that note, as a young person, I guess I would say, I have a lot of big ideas and a lot of big things that I'd love to do. And so do my peers. And, we all talk about these things. But it's scary and it's intimidating. And I think the first step is really believing that you can do it, that you are the one that not even deserves to be there. I mean, we all do, but you're the one that can be there. How has your mindset about that kind of been shaped over the years? Have you always thought, I'm going to do great things, I'm going to start this thing and it's going to, blow up, and we're going to be talking with Gloria Steinem and Abby Wambach and these amazing people? Or is it something that you continuously have to work on, kind of that imposter syndrome, if you will?
It's a great question. So first of all, just to be clear, everyone has imposter syndrome. If you have empathy and you are self-reflective and you're thoughtful, everyone has imposter syndrome. So just sort of take that in. Sometimes it's incredibly powerful to, if you are feeling that way, if it's a safe space, to say that to whomever you're talking to, man, I'm feeling really nervous right now, right? Or whatever else, because it's real and it's authentic. And so I would encourage you and others to lean into that, not in a way where it's imposter syndrome is not productive, right? But lean into the honesty of that, to really explore that, because you do deserve to be there, to be clear, right? But I also think that, the first part of your question is, or started out with, there are a lot of really big things, but it's scary, right? It's really, really scary. And I think that the source of that is there's a fear of failure. And just to be clear, you're going to fail probably a lot, right? If you are striving and you ultimately are successful in anything, you're going to fail so many times. And you kind of just have to accept that. And from a very young age, when I was starting out my career and making decisions, because a lot of those decisions, again, are really pivotal to what you want to do and sort of set the trajectory. And if you are on the wrong path, get off it. Like if there's anything I can say, like if you already know that your boss doesn't support you, you're not surrounded by people that are lifting you up, you just kind of hate the content, like you need to find a way to get out. That doesn't mean quit immediately, right? You want to make sure that you're continuing to be able to sustain yourself and do things, but you need to spend as much time as you can in very supportive surroundings, and whatever that means and whatever that looks like. And if you don't have a supporting surrounding in work, get out of it as soon as possible, but lean into your support system at home. But you're going to fail, and play this game with yourself, or ask yourself this question in advance of really taking a leap. And that is, what is the absolute worst that could happen?
Yeah.
What is the absolute worst that could happen? I mean, you could look foolish, right? You could lose your job. You could, there are certain things, but then, you sort of sit with that and like truly go through that and say, gosh, if I lost my job because I was pursuing my passion and I had good intentions and then maybe that's not the best job for me. And maybe that's just, that is a way to push me into, something that I should have been doing sooner. Right. And so when you start to have that fear bubble up, you start to walk through the worst case scenario. I think that's really helpful, because I think, for me at least, it helps eliminate some of the fear. But then on the heels of that, so that's the worst case scenario. But then also after that, envision, what is the best case scenario? What is the best case scenario? The best case scenario is that this could lead to something else that I haven't even imagined for myself. This could lead to such greater impact. This little conversation, this little effort, this anything could be instrumental in moving forward. And then when you sort of balance the pros and cons, then it becomes pretty easy, right? Yeah. And then the more you do that, and the more that you take a leap, and the more you take these chances, and the more taste of impact that you feel, and looking into somebody else's eyes and really making a difference for them, again, the more exciting it becomes, and the more that fear just sort of dissipates, and it almost becomes like super fun. Like that fear starts to bubble up, and you're like, I got this. Like I got this, and I got you. I'm gonna rock this. And it's amazing, but guess what? If it's not amazing, because you're not always gonna win, right? You're not always gonna be successful. Things are gonna go over like a lead balloon, and that is okay. And I think that's, the hardest part. So many people have said this, but the hardest part is just getting started. So just do it. Just get started, just move forward, just do the work, and it really, and have good intentions, right? Have good intentions, look at the people around you, lift other people up, and it comes together, and then you will find your own special path. Do not emulate anybody else. Just try to be the best version of yourself, and you can look up to people. I so admire Gloria Steinem, but I don't want to be Gloria Steinem. I want to be the best version of myself, right? And I want to take some of the learnings that she's had, but I'm a different person, and I can add value in other ways. And so you just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point, which is maybe it won't go over well, but for every 10 people that don't like what you've put out there, or, whatever, maybe think it's silly, there's one person that it really mattered to. And I think when you weigh those, the one definitely outweighs the 10 people who don't really care. So I think you also have to take that into consideration. And we also talked about this at Gloria's, but we talked about how growth happens when you do the things that you don't feel quite ready to do. So
That's
right. just getting started. And if you don't, you're never going to feel ready anyways. At least that has been my case. But when I started just doing things that I was like, well, I'm not cut out for this, and I don't, imposter syndrome, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to do it anyway. just being bold, the returns were tenfold. I've like learned that in the past year. It's amazing how if you're kind and you have good intentions, but also if you're bold, good things really do come. You just have to be willing to, to put yourself out there and try. You touched on this in the beginning a little bit of being somewhat of a challenger and how that has brought tension. Can you touch on that in your career? Because I think that's something that, my generation, we feel very passionately about, but there's such a dissonance with the generation who might be our bosses or whatnot. It kind of creates a lot of tension.
Yes. So first of all, let me just say, I am so grateful to your generation for being bold and for marching in the streets and for speaking out and for defending individuality and standing up for what you believe in. And I see so much promise in your generation for all of the reasons that you just described. So thank you. Thank you to your generation. Thank you to the generation that's ahead of you. To be honest, there's no easy way to do it. It has created a lot of tension for me. I don't take no ever, right? I've learned how to do that. I've learned how to do that more diplomatically and push back more diplomatically. I've learned somewhat, and I'll be continuing to learn until the day that I die, to be a little less of a hothead, when I'm trying to plow through things and get things done and I'm excited and I know that it's going to work. Right. And somebody telling me no, it's not, it's not a fun place to get in my way, right? When I'm like super charged and ready to go. And that has 100% created tension in my career and tension that has propelled me in a lot of ways, but then also tension that I would have had a lot more fun if I didn't have. I don't know that I would change it, right? I don't know that I would change it because if we get lulled into the status quo, and if we get intimidated or, frankly, in some cases, bullied, right, or spoken down to in ways that discourage sort of reaching and pushing and driving, it's not helpful. By the way, it's not helpful for the organization. It's not helpful for that manager. It's not helpful across the board. Healthy dialogue and debate and discord is good, and it's how we move forward. And we don't agree, all of the people on the planet don't agree on everything, and that is a good thing, right? We make things better. But if you are going to be a contrarian, if you are going to push forward, if you are going to push limits, there will be people that are trying to push back, right? That are trying to maintain the status quo, that are intimidated, that are threatened, that want to maintain the privilege that hasn't been earned. Like, all of those things are very, very real. And the only, I guess the only advice that I could give is you got to you must be kind. You must have good intentions. Don't fight for the sake of fighting. Right. But you got to accept the fact that not everybody's going to love that. And not everyone's going to support it. And in fact, there will be people that are overt about it and very covert about it. They're going to try to hold you back because you don't know your place. Right. And like that whole knowing your place thing is complete and utter bullshit. Your place is wherever you want to be, period. And so just, do it with aplomb, do it with grace. I'm still learning all of this. But push back, right? If you see injustice, don't fall in line. We form circles, right? That's what Glorious Talking Circles are all about. We get together and we push forward, and you're just going to have to get comfortable with conflict. And that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing for a lot of women to do. It's a hard thing for marginalized people to do because conflict has been so oppressive, right? But that's the only way that we're going to change, and it's the only way that we're going to really push forward. And just surround yourself with people that encourage that and support that, and allies, allies and friends that lift you up instead of tearing you down.
At ODI, we're all about making the media industry more diverse. What can we do as a collective, but also as individuals, to increase diversity within that space?
Demand it. Demand it in front of the camera, demand it behind the camera, demand it in every way, shape, and form. And we just talked about this. Your generation does that, right? Like, speak with your pocketbook, speak with your, with where you want to go and work. Don't accept anything less, like, I'm sorry, we are beyond unconscious bias. No one can have any unconscious bias at this point because it's all the biases have been pointed out, right? Like if there's anything unconscious, then we need to, continue to do work on ourselves. But we need to demand it, and we need to demand it at every level, right? Not just ensuring that we have diverse thought and diverse representation at the least paid jobs, right? Demand it in the C-suite, demand it in the boardroom. And you can only do that, in my opinion, by finding your tribe and getting together. And that tribe is a collection. In my case, my tribe doesn't necessarily look like me and doesn't necessarily have my background. My tribe are just my people who support me, and I support them through everything, right? And so you just get together and you just demand it. And there's power in numbers, and and so we just, go to movies that are doing the right thing. Support people who are doing the right thing. I mean, one thing that actually has been interesting throughout, especially in media, right? In media and entertainment in particular, there is actually a long history of blackballing people that speak their mind, right? And nowadays people are, calling it the cancel culture, but I'm sorry, cancel culture has been around. That, people have been their opportunities have been removed because of because of gossip, because somebody didn't like what they did. And so they've literally been blackballed in the entertainment industry. That is atrocious. And we should all and little things to the big things, right? When, if someone comes to you and says, don't work with that person, figure out what's going on there, right? I think that we just need to continue talking about it. We need to talk about how much we make. Stop not talking about money, right? Like, we need to all talk about how much we make. We need to all talk about our real experiences wherever it is we work. We need to work together. We need to lift one another up. We need to forgive one another, right? Like, people make mistakes. People screw up. People are, in stressful times and under a lot of, pressure. People do the wrong things. We need to just work together to lift one another up, to forgive one another. And in the media industry in particular, demand nothing less than representation for your audience. If you want to go out there and you want to have a broad audience, you better have broad representation all up and down the organization, in front of the camera, behind the camera, at all levels.
Yeah, I was on the plane yesterday coming back from California, and I was kind of just watching all the different movies and TV shows that were playing. And one of them was an incredibly diverse production. And I was just sitting there thinking that is so great. This is the first time that I'm seeing representation for this group. And I'm sure it's the first time that they are too. And obviously we have such a long way to go, but I'm happy that the conversation is at least getting started. And I also think what you said about cancel culture, having been around for a long time, is incredibly wise, because all these people are throwing up their hands about this new phenomenon, but it's been going on, this silencing and taking opportunities away from people for so long, but the people that didn't deserve it in any respect, and this kind of silent culture, whether it's about, pay for women, or whether it's about harassment and just treatment in general in the media industry and in other industries, the secrecy was only protecting the people that didn't deserve protection.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Now we're course correcting. And yeah, I think that was such a great, I like had this realization as you were saying that. Well, we could not have ended on a better note. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.